Hello to all the debt warriors listening, and welcome back to another episode of Millennial Debt Domination. I'm your host, Katie Fata. Today's episode will be our Ask Me Anything episode. I got some great questions you guys recorded for me and a write-in question. These questions were awesome, and I think they cover some financial aspects that many millennials and Gen Zers are curious about. I'm also going to be joined by returning guest Kim Cole, who is Navicore Solutions Community Engagement Manager. Kim's joined me on the podcast in the past, and she's given great advice, so I thought she would be a good co-host for this episode. If there are any other financial questions you have that I didn't answer, feel free to reach out to us on social media, or you can send us an email. I'll put all that information in the description of this podcast. Okay, now let's get to answering your questions. Hi, Kim. Thanks for being back on the podcast with me today.
Katie, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited.
Yeah, I feel like me and you could definitely tackle these Ask Me Anything questions together and get some answers for the kids and everything like that. So thanks for being here.
Again, it's my pleasure, and I love these kind of Q&As. They're a lot of fun.
Yeah, definitely. All right, so I think we're just going to jump into the first question here.
Hi, this is Mark. I'm a college sophomore. My question is, how many savings accounts should I have? Do I need an emergency fund? And how much should I try to save?
All right, that's a great question, Mark. How many savings accounts should I have? And then he also asked about emergency funds and how much should he try to save? So do you want to kind of start with this one?
Sure. With savings accounts, what a lot of people don't realize is there are multiple types of savings accounts. But when you are really getting involved in banking, a good old-fashioned traditional savings account is critical. When we talk a little bit more about emergency funds, you kind of see where that all comes into play. I typically recommend that you have a traditional, what they call like a statement savings account. The only thing I do recommend with this is that you shop around when it comes to savings accounts. And the reason for that is because interest rates can vary greatly between some of these accounts. So you want to make sure that you're choosing an account that is paying you the most amount of interest. And then perhaps when you get a little bit more advanced into your relationship with banking, there are, like I said, more, a little bit more interesting kind of a savings account, like money market accounts, which is like a kind of a combo of a checking account and a savings account. Usually need to have a little bit more money in there, but the beauty of that is that it tends to pay a little bit more interest. I would recommend one or two savings accounts and one checking account.
Yeah. I agree with that. And I think as for an emergency fund, you should definitely have an emergency fund. Although, you might not think you don't have a lot of assets, like a house or something like that, but you do need an emergency fund because you never know what can happen. It kind of acts as a financial security blanket. So you might need it if there's like a rough economic time or an injury, or where you might need an emergency fund for like a costly car repair. It's definitely important. So in order to make an emergency fund, you first need to determine how much you need to save. So the suggested starting point is 3 months of your income. So if you want to determine this, I would say list all your necessary monthly expenses, create a budget, and calculate how much you need for these expenses. Then multiply that value by 3, and make that your savings goal for your emergency fund. So I would say also, after you successfully save 3 months of what you need, then work your way to a total of having 6 months living expenses in your emergency fund. So if you're not sure where to keep your emergency fund, I'm going to give you a couple suggestions right now, because it should be separate from a normal savings account. So you can use, as Kim kind of said before, a money market account is a great place to use to keep your emergency fund because you collect interest on every deposit like you would with a savings account. Another great place you can look at is a high yield savings account. So this option you can open at your bank or an online bank. So you'll have to commit to a certain period of time where you cannot touch your deposit, but you may earn a higher rate of interest. So definitely need an emergency fund. And like I said, that's how much you should try to save for an emergency fund. But how much do you think someone should save for like a regular savings when they're first getting started?
Well, I think that, right off the bat, there's this old theory that says pay yourself first.
Yes.
You take 10% of your paycheck before you even see it and put it into a savings account. So I would recommend, that's a great, easy starting point. I just wanted to add one thing to what you were talking about with emergency savings. Katie, because one of the things that we are seeing right now, we saw something kind of unprecedented just recently, and that was the closing of banks. And so for a while there, whether it be hurricanes, pandemics, loss of power, we may be in a situation where cash is king. And you may not be able to use your credit cards. You may not be able to have access to those kind of things. So being able to go to the bank, taking out cash from that emergency fund, and being able to survive on those funds during some of these crazy times is really another emergency that we don't often think about. We think, if something comes up like a repair, because that's what I've always said, until I went through Hurricane Sandy, where my bank flooded, and I went through the pandemic where my bank closed. And having that emergency savings and being able to take cash out before the banks closed and giving an opportunity for my family to survive on that cash for a month made a really big difference. So I can't support your theory on emergency savings enough. I'm a huge supporter.
Yeah, that's a great point about the cash, especially for millennials and Gen Zers, because a lot of them don't use cash, or think about it.
Exactly.
But yeah, definitely think about if there's like a power outage for days or something. That's a great point to have that, to be able to have that fund and take it out. And I guess just one more suggestion I have for an emergency fund is to make sure you make those payments a priority. So if you don't maybe trust yourself to make those payments a priority, make it an automatic payment. So to decide how much you want to go into your emergency fund every month, set up an automatic payment. So you make sure you have that money going into your emergency fund, at least until you build it up to 6 months. But yeah, I think we answered Mark's question pretty well. Do you have anything else to add to that one?
I just wanted to support your position on having that kind of direct deposit. Many employers can deposit funds into multiple accounts from your paycheck. So, like you said, I mean, you could have money going into the emergency account, you have money going into a traditional savings account, and like I said, many employers have the ability to deposit funds from your paycheck into usually 3 different accounts. So, don't be afraid to speak to your employer about that.
Yeah, exactly. Make sure you do your research first, but great point. All right. So I think we have another question coming up and we'll play it for you guys now.
Hi, my name's Ryan. I'm a college senior at the University of Maryland, and my question is, what is a 401k and a Roth IRA? Should I be looking to set one up in the near future?
All right. So the next question is about 401ks and Roth IRAs, and he wants to know if he should be looking to set one up in the near future. So, I mean, I've talked about this before, but I'm definitely, all for kind of setting up a 401k or a Roth IRA. So I guess we'll break them down each for you. So do you want to start with this one?
Absolutely. Now, first and foremost, I totally agree with you. The sooner that you can begin investing into your retirement, the better off you're going to be. As a millennial, we cannot assure you that Social Security is going to be there, number one. And number two, as a financial educator and counselor, I see that Social Security alone is not reasonable to survive on.
Mm-hmm.
So the sooner you're able to set those up and make those a priority, the better off you're going to be. So with 401k, that's kind of there's the tradition, like you said, and the Roth. I'll talk a little bit about the traditional. It's the type of a retirement account, and it's employee sponsored account. So money is taken out of your paycheck every pay period and put into this 401k. And if you're very lucky, your employer is also contributing to it to help increase the value. The Where this one comes into play is a little bit different is that the money that's going into this account is pre-tax, which is great for reducing your taxable income when it comes time for taxes. But where the problem may come into play is when you are taking that money out now as a senior citizen, that money is now taxable. So that is, it's a great vehicle, and one, if your employer offers it, should absolutely be involved in it. But I like to kind of toss it back over to you, Katie, because I think that the Roth IRA that you're going to speak about is also a very interesting investment tool.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, especially if your employer doesn't offer a 401k or you don't work yet, a Roth IRA it's a great option for retirement. And, it's a type of savings account that's meant for retirement that is generally not taxed upon distribution, provided certain conditions are met. So this encourages you to save because the earnings in your Roth IRA are tax free. And, many millennials and especially Gen Zers who are super young aren't currently saving for their retirement because they feel like it's not important. They feel like maybe I can't even pay my bills every month. Why should I be saving for retirement? But saving for retirement is important, and you should start saving as soon as possible. So if a 401k is not an option, I think a Roth IRA is a perfect solution for young people when it comes to saving for retirement. Because once you put money into it, any earnings are tax-free, like I said. As long as you follow the withdrawal rules, you will not have to pay taxes on withdrawals during your retirement. But like I said earlier, I think you should be saving for your retirement as early as possible. You're not going to want to work forever, so start saving now. Even if you're not contributing a ton to your retirement fund, something is better than nothing. So, yeah, definitely. You should look to set one up now, if not in the near future.
I agree, and just to add one additional note, there is if you are working and you're in a position where you don't have a lot of expenses, your employer is offering a traditional 401k or 403b, which is basically a 401k for nonprofits. There is no reason why you cannot also set up a Roth IRA in addition to that. So that, yes, I mean, if you're in a position where you've got a lot of money right now kind of coming in, you're really hustling, you're kind of doing your thing, there's no reason to set up both. Statistics have shown us that depending on when you retire, your retirement time could cost up to $2 million. People are living much longer. And so as a result, we're going to need a lot more money.
Yeah, definitely. And I think for older millennials who have kids, I would say set up a Roth IRA for your kids to set them up for the future. So they'll be saving for their retirement and they won't even be knowing it if you're in the financial position to do so.
It's funny, Kay, that you say that because there are actually people that, financial professionals, that so strongly advocate setting up a Roth IRA for children that they're even looking at that as an alternative to setting up special kind of college savings account. So, I mean, now you're getting down kind of a rabbit hole of investing, but what you say is very true, and something that if somebody that's listening to us is really interested in this topic, it's definitely worth investigating.
Yeah, definitely. I think we might have an investing question down the line, so we can definitely get into that more. But well, thanks for the. I think we definitely answered that question. So thank you, Ryan, for that question. So the next question I have is a write-in question we got in our email, and it's from Rachel, who is just starting grad school, and she just asked, "How do I budget?" I think like that's a great question that I feel like we definitely can answer that. So I think I'll start. To budget, you're going to have to break down your monthly expenses into categories. So first, I think you want to list your set monthly expenses. So these are bills that you're gonna have to pay every month. So this would be like your utility bill, a mortgage or rent, and car payments. So this must be included in your budget every month. And then after you list those expenses, you can list all your variable expenses. So these would be groceries, entertainment, and like clothing. So, and then I would say after you list all those, I would go through your credit card statement and look if there's any monthly subscriptions that you can live without. And if there are, delete them so you don't have to pay for them. So you'll also need to make a category for your cable and or cell phone bill. So check these bills to make sure you're using all the features you're paying for. And then you want to, like with the credit card subscriptions, cancel whatever items you don't need and then add up all the expenses you can eliminate, and then you have extra money. So then you could put that extra money into your budget every month for, you can even put that extra money into your emergency fund or savings. So, or any of your debts or anything like that. So all of this will add up to be kind of your budget for the month, I think. Do you think there's any kind of categories I'm missing from that?
One of the things that first of all, I think you did a great job with kind of breaking down the categories because there can be a lot. Yeah. One of the things that I tend to see with people who come for budget assistance, well, first I want to say the question of how do I set up a budget is not an easy one. It sounds to us as consumers, oh, how simple. But realistically, not having an effective working budget is one of the main reasons that people get into financial difficulty. So that question is a lot more important than what some people may give it credit for. I'm a big fan of starting by tracking your expenses for a month. Writing down everything you're spending your money on every time you open your wallet, because for a lot of people, they have no idea where their money is going. Right. We live in such a cashless society that now we don't think about when we stop in a convenience store and buy something real quick or stop at the coffee shop or whatever it may be. And what ends up happening is that at the end of the month, we take a look at it and go, why on earth did I spend $45 at, so-and-so coffee? We don't realize a lot of the time where those funds are going. And then from there, breaking them down into the categories that you discussed. I can tell you just like a quick thing that there was a TV show recently that I wanted to try and I had to get an app for it. So it was free for 7 days and then it was like $9.99 after that. Well, I watched the show. I didn't like it and I didn't think anything of it. And for 6 months, they charged me $9.99 until I realized that all of a sudden I just paid $60 for something that I have absolutely no need or desire for. And then, so, it's important that you really do, like you had said, really look at where it's going, especially when it comes to your technology.
Yeah, because I feel like that's such mindless payment. You don't even think.
Do you need Netflix? Do you need Amazon Prime? Do you need Hulu? Do you need Tubi? Do you know what I mean? It's we're getting inundated on the other end from all of these things that look like deals almost, cut the cord, and then you'll just have all these apps. And then before you know it, you're paying the same thing you were paying for cable. And it doesn't
exactly
make a difference.
Yeah, you definitely need to first. That's a great suggestion for everyone is to first evaluate what for a month exactly what you're spending, then see what you can cut, and your budget will definitely it'll after, and then you'll finally get into your budget, and I think that'll definitely help you with your spendings. So, all right, so I think we're gonna get into the next question now.
I'm Ellie, and I'm a recent college grad. My question is, when do I start investing? I don't even know what a CD is.
All right. So a question about investing and CDs. So we actually had a podcast a few weeks ago, maybe like a little over a month ago, about all about investing, but I'll kind of summarize that. So when it comes to investing, I would say it's different for everyone when to start. But when it comes to investing in a 401k or a Roth IRA, like we said earlier, invest as early as you can. You're going to want to invest in your financial future as soon as possible. You also want to check your financial standings before you start investing, because it doesn't make sense to invest money if you have a significant amount of debt and no emergency fund. By paying off your debt and saving for emergencies, you'll free up more of your cash for investing. So that's kind of my suggestion when to start investing.
I agree. And the other thing about investing, just to add to what you're saying, is it's something that is quite complicated to kind of understand, and it's one of the areas that I feel very strongly about getting involved with a professional. There have been all of these apps and websites and everything else that have popped up where you can invest right through an app. If you do not have a background in financial investing and the stock market and understanding all the intricacies, I highly recommend staying away from these. And they are marketed to millennials. Right. There are a plethora of financial planners that will be more than happy to help you, with your investing. And also, if you're not sure whether or not it is the right time, they can take a look at everything for you. You had a wonderful podcast about investing, and I would strongly recommend that if anybody is interested in investing, to go back to that podcast and listen. It truly, really did break it all down.
Yeah. Yeah, that's episode was with Winnie Sun, who's a financial advisor, and she really broke down investing great. So I'll put a link to that episode in the description of this podcast so you can get to it easily. So she also says she doesn't know what a CD is. So
the infamous certificate of deposit.
Not the other kind of CD. They probably
not
don't
the other
know
kind,
what
but
that is.
Which as millennials you may not know what that is. No, all joking aside. Actually, CDs are great little tools and are often overlooked in the financial world because they're not fancy and they're not sexy, but what they do is they allow you to put money into, it's a savings vehicle. You put it into this CD and the bank holds on to the money. You can usually get one that lasts for a few months, 1 month, 6 months, or you can even go out to years. And what's great about it is that it tends to have a higher interest rate. You're making more money on it. If you are the type of person who does not want to have access to that money, you're like me who would go, oh, gee, I wish I had that money right now. Let me go and get it, and completely lose the benefit. It locks that money down. And at the end, you get your money back plus the interest that is made. I myself have used these when we know one of our cars is like starting to go and we're going to need a down payment for our car. We'll take some money, put it into a CD, leave it there for 6 months or a year, if we know in about a year out, let it just keep generating the interest. And then when we take it out, we've made some decent money on it. It's an opportunity then to use it for something that is necessary. If you do put your money into a CD and you need to take it out. It's not like you cannot take it out. But just like a lot of the products that Katie and I have talked about today, there's penalties if you do take it out too soon. So just make sure you speak to the bank about any penalties if you need to have access to those funds prior. But like I said, they're a great little savings vehicle.
Yeah. And I think with investing, as we kind of said earlier, definitely talk to a professional. Don't just go into it blind. So, especially as a young person, you don't want to be making the wrong decisions when it comes to finances like that. So, yeah, I think we got another question here.
Hi, I'm Priyanka. I'm 20 from Indianapolis, Indiana, and I want to know how to increase my credit score.
Okay. So this one's about credit and credit scores, which is kind of like our specialty here at Navicore. So you want to know, how do I increase my credit score?
Oh, my favorite topic.
I know.
One of the things about the credit score that is tough is that we as professionals can't tell you exactly what the algorithm is. Like, if you were to pay off a credit card, what is that going to exactly do to your score? We don't know that for sure. What we do know is that what fixes and builds credit faster than anything else is on-time monthly payments. Yes. That makes up the largest component of the credit score. And there is truth to the fact that no credit is worse than bad credit. So if you are starting with no credit, it's definitely time to start looking at building up some credit. And that can be done fairly easily now. A lot of banks are offering small credit builder loans. There are credit cards that you can use. And one of our counselors, I'm sure, would be happy to guide you on what particular option would be best in your circumstances. But again, to increase your credit score, on-time monthly payments.
Right. No, that's kind of what I was going to say when it comes to maintaining your credit score, because as a millennial and a Gen Zer, you're new to credit. So the one factor that's kind of hard to maintain is going to be length of credit. That's kind of where that's the only factor that's kind of low for me, because I've only had credit for not very long. So we can't do anything about this now. We want to make sure we can keep all the other factors in order to maintain our score. So like Kim said, making sure you pay off your car, all your bills in full at the end of the month. If you can't pay it off in full, but make sure you're paying more than the minimum, because you want to keep your credit score high, and that's how you're going to keep it high. So, yeah. And also think about credit utilization. It makes up a big part of your score as well. So the key is to keep your ratio low. So don't charge credit cards up near the limits either. That'll not be good for your credit score. But yeah, I think very true. Yeah, but and then if obviously you're having a lot of trouble with your credit score or debts, you can obviously reach out to us at Navicore. I'll put all the information, as always, for Navicore in the description of this podcast. So I think we have one more question that's kind of similar to one that we had before. So I'm going to play it now.
My name is Josh. I'm from California, and I just want to know the difference between a 401k and a retirement savings.
All right, so this one's kind of about a difference between a 401k and a retirement savings. Like we kind of touched on this before, but is there anything else you think we can add about the difference?
Yeah, I just think that at the end of the day, a 401k is a form of a retirement savings. And I think it's really critical, especially for millennials, because, I'm a little bit older than a millennial. I'm a Gen Xer. And they didn't drive home the importance of retirement savings to us. And as a result now, it is something that we're looking at. My husband and I are looking at, where we are now homeowners with children. We're in our 40s and 50s and looking at what we have and saying, wow, we can't live on that if we retire. So I think that is really critical for you guys to understand that now is definitely the time. The other thing we found, it's funny because, we all get kind of pigeonholed our generations. But one of the things that we have found about millennials is that experiences are so important to you guys. You guys love to do really cool stuff. And by setting up your retirement accounts now, having the ability when you do retire to be able to continue to live in a lifestyle where you can go zip lining and travel and all these wonderful things. And it's not just going to be about surviving. I think that's important.
Yeah, I agree. And if, you're not currently contributing to your retirement plan, I would just say do so in some way. If you are working, when you get a raise at work, increase your contributions. And yeah, I definitely think your future self will thank you for doing this, especially if you don't have kids or any other big payments. This is the perfect time to be putting in more now than maybe 10 years from now when you are in the situation where you have kids and a house and expenses. So yeah, I definitely think being as a Gen X or Gen Zer, sorry, and a millennial, this is a great time.
And,
Go ahead.
I love what you're saying, Katie, about when you get a raise.
Mm-hmm.
So for many of us, depending on what industry you're in, you may not be anticipating a raise. It may be a surprise to you.
Mm-hmm.
And if that is the case and you're surviving okay on what you're making now, that is such a fantastic idea, is to use that raise as your contribution. You can always increase or, if need be, decrease your contributions to your retirement through your 401k or 403b. What a fantastic idea. If you're looking to build either into your retirement or your emergency savings, what a great way to do that. If you do get that promotion or you get that raise and that extra money is coming in, I like that. That's a great idea.
Yeah, I think if a lot of people got a raise like that, they'd be like, oh, we got to go on vacation or we got to buy something. But maybe put it towards your 401k or your Roth IRA or whatever you're using to save for retirement.
Absolutely. Tax refunds, the same thing.
Exactly. Okay, well, I think we answered all the questions today. So I just want to thank you for being here with me today, Kim.
It's always a pleasure.
Yes, and I just want to thank everyone for sending in their questions to me. And if you have any more questions, feel free to reach out to me on social media or email me. I'll put the email in the description of this podcast as always. But that wraps up another episode of Millennial Debt Domination. Just subscribe to our channel wherever you're listening. And if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, if you could rate and review us there, that'd be great. So thanks again, Kim.
Thank you.